Tri-City Sports Now, I'm putting this on Facebook today. Well, we do almost all the shows on Facebook. But what I'm saying is I'm going to make these comments here about the Tennessee Volunteers, and then we'll get into a media watch. Forgive me after that. Big news a little bit was ex-Alabama quarterback John Parker Wilson, who is part of a roundtable on WJOX, now in Birmingham, Alabama, rather famous sports talk station. He came out and said that Jeremy Pruitt, I mean, obviously, John Parker Wilson is an Alabama man. Jeremy Pruitt scares me more than Kirby does at Georgia. This has had the weekend to make its rounds and such. When Tennessee was good, they were recruiting on a national level, which Tennessee must do to compete on a national level. I mean, it might sound like, well, doesn't everybody and all that? I could make an argument that possibly Florida schools, I mean, there's always going to be a guy coming in from out of state no matter where you are. But, shore up your own base, California, Texas, and you'll be okay. Tennessee can't do that. Alabama does have more than 50 players in the NFL, state of. Georgia had 29 players in the 2017. I got to check out who had most players drafted via state in this last year's NFL draft. But Georgia was really producing some players, and that's why I actually think that John Parker Wilson should choose his boogeyman in the closet a little bit differently. Says Wilson, I think, as a head coach, not only recruiting but bringing in other coaches, having good staff. We haven't seen Tennessee be really good in 10 years. His ability to get them back, he's got a higher calling. Interesting. The problem with this is that so far, that hasn't happened. Right now, John Adams has a piece in the Knoxville News-Sentinel today that says, yeah, it's still real early, but the Vols are only ranking 36th in national recruiting in 2019. I would take that not even with a grain of salt. I really wouldn't be that nervous about that right now. It's way, way, way too early, and I don't think much of recruiting rankings either. But it should be mentioned, one of the reasons why Phil Fulmer was fired after the 2008 season is that he was only bringing in the 35th ranked recruiting class that year after so many top 10s beforehand. Now, by the way, Wilson has a history with Pruitt. I believe Wilson's path crossed with Pruitt, who was working his way through the high school ranks as an assistant back when Wilson was quarterbacking Hoover High School in Alabama. Pruitt and Wilson were on the same staff in 2007 as, let's see here, when Pruitt became the director of player personnel after his high school coaching career. Wilson does have good insight, obviously, yeah, but could he be biased? That's the question here. I just got to say this. I am reading left and right all these, I can't tell you how many fluff pieces right now I'm seeing on Tennessee has already improved. It's so great to have Phil Fulmer. That the football team is yet to win a game. And I'm telling everybody this, if the Vols go 6-6 next year, go to a bowl game, which they would if they go 6-6, presumably, you should be happy. Should be real happy. I look at this schedule, and after a 2-1 start, victories against ETSU and UTEP, and a loss to West Virginia, I see a 5-game losing streak. Florida, maybe it's in Knoxville, but Florida always beats Tennessee. Alabama always beats Tennessee. Auburn, South Carolina, in Columbia, Georgia. There's also games with Missouri on the schedule, admittedly in Knoxville, but Drew Lock is only getting better and better. Vanderbilt has taken 4 out of 6 from the Vols. Kentucky won last year. It's still hard for me to pick Kentucky to beat Tennessee in football. Go 6-6 after an 0-8 conference schedule last year and really not return. I mean, I'm telling you, Keller Christ is going to be the quarterback. New schemes, new coaches. Yeah, there'll be Ty Chandler to give the ball to. Not a lot of talent returning. Should be very happy with 6-6. But, and this kind of, you get all these, and it's off-season stories, and, the writers who cover the Vols, they have to write something. And there's a lot, just this idea of the Homer media right now. Because there's no wait-and-see attitude. Already, things before even a game has been played, and it bothers me from a journalism standpoint. Things are just great. Mike Griffin, I had him on the show a couple of years ago, twice, and he hasn't come back, and I'm going to tell you why. And I've mentioned the story before. He kept saying in 2016 that Tennessee played the toughest schedule in the country. Well, I'm willing to say, okay, the guy's mistaken one time. Okay, that's fine. When you say it again, now you're just out and out. They didn't. I can't find anyone, any measure of criteria that says Tennessee played the toughest schedule in 2016. But Griffin was coming on this show and spouting that nonsense. So anyway, still has his job. It doesn't get anything to appear on the show. So, but he still is a featured Vols writer for SEC Country. And Tennessee fans, I think fans of every team, they like to read nice stories, all this, about their team, and that's understandable. But Griffith now writes, Tennessee football coach Jeremy Pruitt thankful for Phil Fulmer's leadership and expertise. Remember this about the for better or worse coaching search that Tennessee did to replace Butch Jones and I guess ultimately Brady Hoke. When Phil Fulmer became the athletic director, that's when all the head coaches said no. That's when only coordinators, and I think very briefly Les Miles, who realizes he's out of coaching and probably, but even he suddenly, withered away and all this when Fulmer came on, which to me is a statement that Fulmer wants to be very hands-on with the football team. Fulmer never thought he should have been fired in the first place. Fulmer was always, I'm here, please bring me back, and eventually works his way back to becoming the athletic director, doing very little other than living on memories of 20 years ago. He had worked in real estate, which ought to help in bringing in the coin and all that to UT, don't get me wrong. But his one coaching hire, because Richard Sander gave him basically the opportunity to hire the new ETSU football coach. And after Randy Sanders said, geez, I wish you'd called me earlier, because I just took the offensive coordinator job at Florida State, he turned to Carl Torbush, and Carl Torbush was 11-22. Nobody mentions that. I'm the only guy. That's the track record of Fulmer as an athletic administrator. Already, though, I get Richard Sander tweeting out, they ought to make him the chancellor, Fulmer. Yeah. Just like Jim Tressel at Youngstown State. He's the president there. Now, at Youngstown State University. They ought to do the same thing with Fulmer. Anyway, the writing now is that Fulmer is suddenly the glue holding the Tennessee athletics department together after Joe DiPietro fired Beverly Davenport, the chancellor. So what does Jeremy Pruitt say? Jeremy Pruitt says, it's an edge for me. Being a first-time head coach, I have somebody to lean on and bounce things off of, and I'd say a lot of folks are jealous from that standpoint. Or established head coaches are saying, Phil, I know what you did 20 years ago, but I really know how to coach and be a head coach. I really believe a couple of things. One of the reasons why it seemed like so many coaches were turning down the Vols, I'm not sure it's the job that it used to be. I said, TV money has really evened the playing. A lot of programs. The backyard talent at Tennessee isn't there. The fan base is, the money is there. And that's nothing to sneeze at. But the fan base and the money are at a lot of SEC programs. It's just a little bit easier to recruit. A place like Georgia, when you have or Florida, when you have so many players playing there, or LSU. And I've mentioned this. We'll take a state. Florida had 201 players in the NFL last year, state of. Tennessee had 33. How are you going to compete with that? We'll go outside the state. No, okay, fine. I mean, who are you going to get out of Ohio, really, that the Buckeyes want? Honestly. Well, look, John Kelly came from Michigan. Yeah, he was a 3-star prospect. I know. You know, you shouldn't put that much stock into 3. Think if he was a 5-star prospect, if he had better hands, he'd be wearing a winged helmet or a T on the side. Just asking it. Just, throwing that, So, or would he have Sparty on the side? I mean, consider all this. Anyway, Pruitt has said that's the right thing to say about the AD. Oh, look, I'm fortunate to have. He's very familiar with what goes on in Tennessee and what has made Tennessee great before. That is true. So perhaps there's something there. But okay, that's why Curry was hired too. Remember? Well, he had been at Tennessee when before leaving to Kansas State. That's back when a football program won. At Tennessee. Pointing that out. There's a lot of, and I know it's very difficult to write about anything with substance at this time of the year, but this really is a, let's all cheer for the Vols type of things, Fulmer told the Better Business Bureau of Greater East Tennessee at an annual banquet in recent days, I don't look at it as a job, it's a lifestyle. It's the same thing as being a head football coach. It's something that's important to my family. Of course, when he became the athletic director at UT, criticized by some, he made, here's my family again. Oh, thanks, we know this, Phil. But introducing him there might seem like that's long knives pulled out for Fulmer. I get that. But the idea was it was a little bit of grandstanding at a time when, nobody knew what was going on with the football coaching search, and ultimately all the head coaches said, nah, thanks anyway, UT, and only the coordinators were left. Tommy Tuberville does like the hire of Fulmer. It may work. I'm just saying, Fulmer, when you're hiring the coach, in today's day and age, that's generally not where the AD comes from. Alvarez at Wisconsin, yes. Lynn Swann wasn't a coach, but Southern California likes to make their athletic directors former great athletes who had some level of success in the private sector. And, well, Lynn Swann once ran for governor of Pennsylvania, for crying out loud. So, Mike Garrett was before him. Pat Hayden was before, so, that's what Southern California does. They're special. And other than that, you're not going to find too many people known for their sideline prowess, let's say, who are leading a major athletic football program. Now, Fulmer has identified 4 principles to repair the Vols athletic culture. Again, Mike Griffin writes down this. The problem is with this, and again, what you're going to hear is all good things, don't get me wrong. But the problem is they're kind of cliched. Communication and trust. Yeah. But who doesn't want to have communication and trust? Warmth Okay, good. I mean, because there was a lot of talk about Butch Jones. Was he bully coach? Lane Kiffin isn't really a warm guy. He's a cocky guy, Derek Dooley, it would seem, would have some warmth, just some incompetence, not intensity. I don't know, unless where don't they want their football coaches and their football team to be intense? I mean, this, that's another thing, that's why the culture, we're in the process of establishing our culture, this sort of thing. I don't know. I just, like I said, there's a lot of people right now trying to write, things are going great. But it's the fanboy writer that is writing that. And it's something to be aware of. Again, as I've said, if the Vols go 6-6 next year, be ecstatic. Maybe not ecstatic. Be happy. Be real happy. And for crying out loud, I know it's tough to write about the Vols this time of year, but do we really have to have all these cliches? There's another story out here that came out this week, and Blake Topmeyer wrote this. There's no L in there. Blake Topmeyer. How Parker Henry went from Vols equipment manager to walk-on starter to SEC award winner. You want to know how he did it? The team went 4-8. They needed players. Tri-City Sports now back with Media Watch after this.